Hey friends, Shay here. So today I am here to talk to you guys about some of the most unexpected 5-star reads of my 2022 so far. I did a series like this of best of 2022 in manga, so I will leave those linked sporadically throughout the video. So if you're interested in my manga thoughts, then you can check out those videos. But this video is strictly going to be about books, as well as the next one in this kind of best of 2022 series that I've been doing. This is video 4, technically. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So the first book is one that I heard a lot of my friends talking about, and I wasn't sure I was ever going to read. But May, over at This Past Romance, basically bullied me into reading it, and I have no regrets. And that is The Never King. The Never King is a Peter Pan inspired story. This is a Why Choose style story as well. If you are unfamiliar, we are getting away from using the term reverse harem because it has some racist kind of undertones to it. So we're trying to get away from using that, and now we say Why Choose. So if you're unfamiliar with why I'm saying that, that is why. So there are lots of options for her to choose from. She is a descendant of Wendy. Each descendant of Wendy on their 18th birthday is kidnapped by Pan, and they come back visibly shaken and changed. And this is the mystery of what happens when she is over in Neverland and getting to know Pan and the Lost Boys. So that's all I'm going to say. This is a 3-book series. It is compulsorily readable. Like I said, I wasn't even sure I was going to read this book, let alone like it. And I loved it. I'm very much looking forward to the final installment, which will be later in the year. So probably expect to see this series on my list at the end of the year as well, as long as that last book goes well. The next book on this list is The Dragon's Bride by Katie Robert. This is her first monster-style romance. She is known for her darker, smutty things, and I've really enjoyed everything I've read by Katie Robert. But with the monster romance, just because you enjoy monster romance doesn't mean you're going to write monster romance well. So I tentatively went into this hopeful, and I ended up really enjoying myself. I'm really looking forward to the second book in this series, which will be coming out in a couple of months. And I really enjoy the world that she created. I really liked the relationship between our dragon and his bride. And I like the whole concept of how they were brought together. Essentially, she makes a deal with the demon to escape a really abusive domestic situation, and then is promised to this dragon man leader. And things do happen very quick in this book. I do wish it had been a little slower to develop, but I like a good slow burn romance, so say what you will about that, but I really enjoyed this book much more than I was expecting to, so there's that. The next book on this list is The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. This is her first adult book. This is a romance where a woman is a ghostwriter for a very popular Nora Roberts style author, and she's feeling stuck. And what's happened is her editor has recently changed. So she goes to show up to ask for an extension because she had a really bad breakup. She's not in the mood to write romance. And this editor is kind of hard with her and says, no, you don't have an extension. I need the whole book by the end of the month. So she's starting to panic, but she gets a call that her father has passed away. So she goes home. While she's home, she is haunted by the ghost of this editor because that same day he was hit by a car. And things develop from there. That's all I'm going to say because I don't want to spoil this particular book for you. But this book was brilliantly done. It handles grief in a really beautiful way, in a very hopeful feeling way. So just do know that grief and loss and dealing with the loss of her father is a big chunk of this book. So just know that going in, and I think you'll do just great. I enjoyed this much more than I expected to, and yes. It ended up being a monthly pick for Barnes & Noble, so I'm like, oh, okay, I'll pick it up, I'll try it. And I ended up really loving it. The next one on this book is actually the first book I read this year, and that is Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata, I believe is how you say her name. In this one, we're following a woman who really is probably on the autism spectrum. It doesn't say in the book. But she's very brilliant. She's pretty high functioning. But as a teenager, she gets a job at a local convenience store and kind of learns her sense of purpose and how to interact with the outside world through her training at her job. And this is just kind of about her life and her experiences, and about how someone who ends up working at the convenience store makes some changes in her life. Whether those are positive or negative, I will leave for you to go and read and explore. This is a work that has been translated from Japanese. It was this book was amazing. I loved everything about it. When it comes to translated, I always go in cautiously optimistic, but I ended up really loving this one and what Murata was doing. They have another book coming out later this year that I'm very excited about. So yes, definitely excited for that. The next one on this list is by the amazing Mariana Zapata, and a lot of people, this is like one of their least favorites. So I did not expect to love it as much as I did, and that is Dear Aaron. This is an epistolary novel written through email for the majority of the book. So essentially we have this man in the military and this woman whose brother served in the military, and she signs up through this service to write to soldiers who don't necessarily have like homes, and so they can sign up to be part of this project to receive emails from someone so that they don't lose their will to live, their will to fight, all those kinds of things. And they start up a really great and beautiful friendship and a beautiful connection. And so they've been talking for almost a year by the time that he comes home on leave, and they meet up while he's home on leave. And that's when things move really fast. But it's really been slow burning for a very long time, that they just wanted to make sure that interacting together in person was just as nice as their emails back and forth. So I ended up really enjoying this one. I can understand why people don't like it, but I ended up really loving it. So if you like an epistolary novel, then I would definitely jump into this one. But it is slightly different than most Mariana Zapata's in the way the slow burn works, because it doesn't feel quite so slow burny, even though it really is. The next book is Redemption by Kenya Wright. This is a book that spoke to a part of my soul that I don't talk about a lot, and it stems from the trauma of my first marriage. This is about a woman escaping her very toxic, abusive marriage, and she's been on the run with her kids for a while. It's near Christmas, and her ex shows up with a gun, and things become life or death. And she and her kids fight him off and go on the run again. And, they get in the car and they take off, and they end up crashing into a snowbank in a small town in the middle of nowhere. And the person whose house they happen to crash into is a widower who lost his wife and child due to his ties to the mafia. He is a very lethal and brutal man, but he instantly starts to feel a connection to this woman who's clearly running from something, and her children. And things grow and blossom for them in a relationship from there, while they're also dealing with the high stakes of the ex-husband hunting her down. So with that said, I really loved this. This is a very intense book. So if you do not like intense books or romantic suspense style books, this one probably won't be for you, but I definitely needed to pick up more Kenya Wright. I've been meaning to pick up more from her since I read this one, but I definitely need to. The next one on this list is actually a nonfiction book, and that is Pandoras Jar by Natalie Haynes, I forget. She essentially wrote this book to bring back the validity of all of the women in Greek myth. Women in Greek myth have been done super dirty by the men who have been writing and retelling their stories. So Natalie goes back with all of her research that she's done and corrects the stories and gives you the full picture that they're not willing to give in other stories. It's beautiful. It's brilliant. I found it very engaging. It's not a very long book either. And you're not going to touch on every woman in Greek myth. You're just going to touch on a handful. Some of them you may not know unless you've read things like the Iliad or the Odyssey, but all the stories are equally compelling and brilliant, and I would definitely recommend the book. The next one is Bet on It by Jody Slaughter. This one came out recently. This one definitely has triggers for panic attacks on page, anxiety, PTSD, depression. There's lots going on here. So look up a full list of triggers. Those are just the ones that I remember off the top of my head. I've read this a little while ago now. But essentially, we're following this woman who moved to a small town because she wasn't doing well in a big city. And as she's having this panic attack in the like convenience store, like 10 minutes before they're closing, this guy comes up behind her. He's wanting to get into the fridge that she's having this panic attack in front of, but he just kind of stands there and protects her, lets her kind of calm herself, and then he gets into the fridge and helps her, and he's very sweet and very kind. And then she shows up to her weekly bingo meeting, and he sits across from her because it's her elderly friend's grandson that has come to help take care of her while she had surgery. So it's really cute. The relationship they build is very fun. There is actually a really steamy scene in a car that worked really well for me. And I think you kind of have to suspend your disbelief just a tiny bit because it's an awfully small car and she's a plus size heroine. He's a big guy. So I suspended a little disbelief there, but really enjoyed myself. Overall, this is a fantastic novel. I would recommend it, but do know that it is heavy and it does a lot of heavy lifting and deals with very heavy topics. So either take your time reading it or go in very prepared. And then the last one on this list is going to be Skin by Avita Weiss. This is one that I was hearing about a lot last year, and I just never got around to reading. And then through a challenge from Heather over at Hia Booktubes, I ended up reading this one. And I ended up really enjoying myself. This is a gargoyle romance and a woman who is kind of like an empath. So when she touches people or things, she gets memories. And so she doesn't normally touch people, but she's able to touch him because he's made of stone. It's fantastic. I really loved this. There's going to be a full-length novel coming out about this couple. This was just an erotic short, essentially, and I really enjoyed myself. So I am looking forward to more from Avita Weiss in that lane. So those are my unexpected 5-star reads for the year of 2022 so far. Let me know in the comments down below what books surprised you and ones that you didn't expect to give 5 stars to. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Was it all just a dream, just all in my head?